Director of the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts, and I'm so excited to see you here for what's going to be a wonderful, artful evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, we're thrilled to welcome the extraordinary artist, Holly Roberts, a true pioneer in the world of altered photography. If you haven't seen it, a selection of her work is on view in the Kirk Newman Art School Commons, and those are works from the KA's collection. And they're stunning examples of how photography, painting, and collage can come together in imaginative and powerful ways. And at the KA, we're proud to support visiting artists, not only through talks like tonight's, but also through exhibitions and hands-on workshops. It's one of the few institutions in the country that combines an accredited art museum with a vibrant art school. We're uniquely positioned to celebrate artists and their practices in dynamic, multi-dimensional ways. And visiting artists like Holly enrich and builds upon the, they enrich and build upon the strong foundation of classes and programs that our faculty offer in the Kirk Newman Art School. And Holly's work spans more than 4 decades, and also multiple disciplines that we do offer in the Kirk Newman Art School. By fusing photographic imagery with paintings and collage, she's challenged traditional definitions of photography, opening new pathways of expression and expanding the boundaries of the medium. And Mary will talk a little bit more about that in a moment, and followed by Holly. And this weekend, she's leading a sold-out 3-day workshop titled The Perfect Marriage, Paint and Collage, where participants will dive into mixed media techniques using their own paintings, photographs, and found materials. And we're grateful to the Harold Hope Memorial Fund for generously sponsoring this visiting artist workshop. And there are many people to thank for making Holly's exhibition, workshop, and tonight's program possible. First and foremost, Holly. And then my heartfelt thanks as well to Leslie Donaldson, director of the Kirk Newman Art School, and of course, Mary Whalen, our photography and digital media chair, for their leadership and vision. I also would like to recognize Rahima Barber and Catherine Ransbottom on our curatorial team, as well as Mickey Williamson and Clara Peters, our preparators for installing the beautiful exhibition in the School Commons area. And of course, for tonight's program, my thanks to Miriam Thomas, as well, and our Associate Curator of Adult Programs for her coordination and care, as well as Jennifer Cooley and Amy Hudson in our Education Department. And of course, again, Mary, for your central role. And to our KIA members, thank you so much for your generous support of our mission. We couldn't do programs like tonight, or really anything that we do without your support. And if you're not a member, we warmly invite you to join the KA family, and please see me or Catherine Armstrong, our Director of Advancement. We'd be happy to tell you more about membership. And then before I turn things over, a quick reminder, the museum is open until 8 o'clock every Thursday. With free admission to our galleries and programs, and that's thanks to generous support from the Art Bridges Access for All initiative, as well as the Ephraimson Family Fund. It's part of our ongoing commitment to accessibility and to making the KIA a true cultural oasis for all, where community, creativity, and well-being thrive through the arts. And now it's my pleasure to introduce welcome Mary Whalen, who will introduce Holly Roberts. Mary, please go ahead.
Hello, and thanks for all of you for coming out tonight, and especially to Holly Roberts, who had a grueling journey to get here this evening. We are so thrilled to have you here, Holly. So most of you that are here and know of Holly's work, and those of you that were curious and are here, are all in it for a treat. For me, as a photographer, I always think of her as a photographer who paints on photographs, creating multiple layers of meaning and visual excitement. She has a history of painting, printmaking, and photography, and a long list of exhibitions and publications. And we do have a copy, hot off the press in 2024, of her current book, Storyteller, the exhibition catalog from the San Diego Art Museum. It's a treasure, no doubt, but we, the KIA, have a number of Holly's pieces, and to see the work in person is quite wonderful. And then to hear from the artist herself is where we are here tonight, and why, and thankful for Holly Roberts. So thank you. Please welcome Holly.
Hello, everybody. It was grueling getting here. I'm not going to lie. It was one of those Dallas-Fort Worth airport was shut down, and we're all just frantically. Anyway, it's awful. But Mary picked me up at the airport in Grand Rapids at 1:40 in the morning, and then we drove back. And by the time we got here, it was 3:03, I think, or something. So, and then I had this lovely day-to-day getting to look at the KAI and the city of Kalamazoo, and it's pretty great, I have to say. Been very, very impressed. So I thought I would start out with a little video that was done just this last year. Our PBS station in New Mexico put it together. So I'm going to start with that. Oops. So, I know what I have to do. I've been shown all this, but
Just, there you go.
okay, so
And then browse YouTube. There you go.
thank you. Is that going to go full screen?
Go ahead and click that. There you go. Yeah.
Holly, I would like to begin with what we have here on set today. And let's start with that one. What is that, and how did you make it?
Well, that is a mixed media piece. It's called Awkward Rider, and it's the accumulation of about, I guess, almost 40 years of
Sorry, can I look at something?
putting together material. I start with paint, and then I bring in other materials, and I form basically a story. And when I start out, I don't know where the story's going to go. I just start. I have over 200,000 photo files that I can use as information. Plus, I'm always taking photographs. And this is about my starting to horseback ride again about 5 years ago. I'd always been around horses, always had horses, but then as an adult, I gave it up. And then when I started riding again, it wasn't the same fluid, easy thing it had been when I was young. And so as an awkward rider, this is what I felt like when I got on these huge horses, and it seemed dangerous and sort of scary, but at the same time thrilling.
Titling a piece of art, how important is that to you, and do you think it matters to the people who see you?
Oh, absolutely, it matters. I don't come up with the title usually until I'm about 2/3 or done with the piece, and then it will come to me. But I think it's a clue for people to find out more about it. I think that people need to have some sort of inroad into what you're doing.
The title could almost be thought of like a door then. So
Absolutely.
what is the door for this piece?
Well, this is called Supplicant. This was done around 2017. These are fairly recent. And in this case, it was just, it had this beautiful blue background. And then the body of the chair and the legs of the horse are all made from things that I painted. But Supplicant is about petitioning something for something important. And so I think that horses have always been these kind of mysterious big animals that they do things for you.
It made me think about being of service to each other. So can titles and perception of your work, is that sort of up to the viewer?
Well, I think if it's good, I think you should be able to bring your own agenda to it.
Let's talk about one more piece. I understand this one's called Making Rain.
It just seems like living in the Southwest, and especially now in the last 10, 15 years, our extreme weather is drought. And so I think it's something that's always on my mind. And then my husband and I lived in Zuni for 8 years. And of course, they have these rain dances. And they were just beautiful and powerful. So I think in my art, there's this asking for rain. And that's what this is called, Making Rain, this piece. And it's really about petitioning the gods to give us some rain. And like the Zunis have their dances, I have my paintings. And they come up every year or so, I'll do a rain painting.
Does it make it rain?
No.
You are known for combining photography and painting. What makes those things go together?
I think what happened was I was one of the first people to kind of do that, to take photography, which was just becoming accepted as a fine art media, and then take paint, which the photographers were just terrified of paint. It was like, but I wasn't, I was too dumb. I first started painting over photographs and then changed to putting photographs on top of the paintings. But there's something about the reality and the non-reality that's very powerful. You have the reality of the photo with the non-reality of the marks of the paint or the things that I make up and put in.
When I started out, I had the idea of a horse, so I was basically looking at the body first, and I had lots of different material that I used to try and form the body of the horse. And this is
Early on, your work was described as abusing the photograph. How did you take to sort of that label or that phrase being applied to what you did?
I actually gave it to myself.
Okay.
I just love it because again, I think that I was sort of the darling of the photography world for a while because I think they were all so excited that I was just beating the heck out of these photos. I mean, I was cutting them up, I was taking them apart, and I'm really not a great photographer. But I was able to take these photographs and make them be something else. By cutting them up, by transfiguring them and transposing them, they become something that was more powerful.
I'm interested in how you begin. Is it a theme? Is it the mediums? Is it looking around your collection of paints and photographs? How do you start?
I think I'm a looker. I start with a painting. I take paint and I just throw it around. I paint outside because it's so messy. And it's like there's a fairy tale of a little girl and she puts on these ballet shoes and they're magical and she dances and dances, but then she can't stop dancing and she has to cut her feet off. And I sort of feel like that when I paint. I just can't stop. I go and go. I won't go to the bathroom. I won't get anything to eat. I get paint everywhere. So that's what starts. I make maybe 20, 30 background paintings. And then I'll come in and I have all these photographs that I have, too many almost. I mean, they're so deep. But I'll begin to take them and lay them out and cut them up and put them down and see what happens. And then I'll begin to follow a storyline that it will begin to make sense. And I'll maybe work on maybe 5 at a time and I'll put them up on the wall. They may take a couple of months to finish, but I'll be constantly adding or taking away. And then at some point they're done.
How do you know when you're finished?
Your stomach stops hurting.
How have your concerns or fears or anxieties about the world influenced what you make?
I think I'm a naturally anxious person. And so I think that's what comes through. I'm not someone who does happy, joyful work. I do work that connects with that deeper, darker side. Although I think it's often funny stuff too. I mean, I think there's humor to it, but that's how I approach the world. That's how I see it. I'm a glass half empty kind of person. And so that's what I connect with.
Has that changed over time? In other words, has the world gotten crazier and you've gotten calmer?
I've gotten calmer, I've gotten saner, I've gotten psychologically healthier, but the world has gotten crazier and crazier to the point that you just don't even want to watch the news because it's so bad. So I'm a much happier person. When I look back at some of my earlier paintings, I think, wow, it's pretty intense. But so yeah, it's flipped. The world's worse. I mean, maybe the world was bad all along and I just didn't see it.
So in 30 plus years of doing this, what have you discovered?
God, I think it's an ongoing discovery. I don't think it's an end. I don't think you go through the door and there you have it. I think you're always opening doors, opening doors, opening doors. And every time I do a piece, I think I can never do another good piece again. I'm done, that's it. So I think it's as simple as that. There's no big aha moment.
I want to know more about that. You think you're done at the end of every piece. How do you start anew?
In your hands. I think your hands get going. They do whatever, write or make, and I think that's why painting's so important for me, because it makes once my hands take over, then my head can go out and, like smoke a cigarette or whatever. But my hands are in charge. That's my creative self. It's letting my unconscious take over, because mostly our consciouses are uncontrolled. So that allows me to have this more powerful thing take charge.
So I do not feel comfortable when I look at your art. I wonder if that is a common response from folks who talk to you about what you've made. What is the feedback for the most part?
Well, mostly I'll get it sideways. People will, oh, that was really scary. And I'll think, what? But mostly people aren't too polite to say that to you. And usually when I have a review written, it's positive. It's talking about the complicated things that it's saying. So I don't really hear that much, but I think it is a common thing. And mostly I think people don't look at it and feel comfortable. But the people that do, not only do they not feel comfortable, but they're also laughing, or they're also feeling excited and intrigued and interested. I hope. I mean, that's what I would hope. But
it's a little bit that moment of laughing at the wrong moment during the movie. In cruising your catalog, I think I did that a couple of times. So what do you want people in the end to take from what you've made?
Well, I want them to love the work. I don't want them to feel separated or anxious or, afraid or uncomfortable, but it's what it is. And I can't control that. I mean, that's the thing. I'm not in control. I'm only the hands that do the bidding of the unconscious directive. And so if we're going to do something that's scary, okay, well, we'll do that. So. One time a gallery director told me that snakes and red never sold. So for about 6 months, I just did snakes and red,
So art not as an act of manipulation, but potentially at least as an act of rebellion.
Yeah. Or somehow that creative self saying, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. So.
Yep. There you go. Okay, thank you. Oh, no, I don't want that. So there we go. And I was given very clear directions on how to do all this, very clear, and we went over it and I practiced. Didn't matter. So when I first started doing this, as I mentioned, this was, can everybody hear me okay? No? Right, what? How's that? Good, yeah, because I think we were getting that feedback from them. Anyway, when I started out, I was a printmaker, and I'd done ceramics, and the teacher wasn't very encouraging, and I did printmaking, and it was just hard, and photography is just so tough, you know, you're just always rolling ink and lifting stones, and so I had these photographs, these black and white photographs that I was using as source material, and I had seen another artist who hand painted the photographs using a thing called Marshall oils. And they were little tubes. Again, photographers are just so careful and precise. And so I thought, well, no, I don't need those. And I just started taking regular oil paint and just painting away. And this wonderful thing began to happen. I just felt liberated because when you painted on the surface of the photograph, it stayed. You could wipe it away, it would stay, it wouldn't stay. It wasn't like you spent 5 hours doing a drawing and then you were afraid to do anything to it. So that began this incredible process. So it's not going, there we go. I've always done the photographs. They're my photographs. They're the people, the things in my life that are around me. And so that tends to be the people I know and love, tends to be animals. But I'm not someone who does, I wouldn't go up to a stranger and say, can I take your photograph? They're people that I have some relationship with. So especially with my husband, he has been in lots and lots of my images. This is the other thing as a photographer is you're always kind of dealing with the camera and what can you do with it. And this was taken with a Diana camera, which was a funky little camera that let lots of light into your camera, and you came up with these kind of wildly weird photos. So this was a photo of he and I that I then came back into and painted over, called Couple. I think, yeah, we skipped some stuff there, quite a bit. So this is a photo of my daughter and my two daughters, my older daughter and my younger daughter, and you can kind of get a sense of their relationship there. Of course, the older daughter's more serious. The younger daughter is the wild child that tantrum, every hour or so. And it's called Girl with Small Dog, Nipping. This was again, these are people I know. So this is a student of mine, young man, and there's just something lovely about his face. And at about this time, I started to want to do more than just paint on the photograph. So I began to take the photograph in its rectangular form and glue it down onto panel so that I could expand it in a way. So there was the photographic information, and then there was the white of the panel around it. And still painting with oil paints. And this is called Young Man Watching. This is Teal, the dog you saw with the other daughter. This is called Small Wolf in the Forest. And probably of any image I've done, this is the most popular. And a magazine in England, it was a psychology magazine, asked if they could use it for the cover of a magazine article about schizophrenia. So I said, yeah. Again, still trying to sort of expand the photograph and do more with it. I began to take multiple photographs. So this would have been Bruce leaning over, and I took maybe 3 photos of him, and they never quite fit, but that's kind of wonderful. And then glue them together on the panel and then see what I came up with. This is called Tired Angel. I went to a Gerhard Richter show, the German painter, and he does a lot with this big squeegee. He sort of pulls the paint down. And I thought, I can do that. I can squeegee paint too. Couple arguing. So that's the one that we got to quickly. About right around 2004, I just stopped working. And I'd been working for solid 20 years, oil painting over photographs. And I just wasn't doing it. And it wasn't like I consciously knew it. I just wasn't going into my studio.
I was going to soccer games, I was washing dishes, I was doing whatever. And I realized I needed to take a sabbatical. So I did, I took a year off, and in that time I learned to use a digital camera and I learned to use Photoshop. And that completely changed things. And it gave me all this freedom that I hadn't had with the darkroom photographs. And I went from painting oil over the photo to painting a panel and then putting the photo on top. And when I first started, I was trying to cut the photo out and glue it down, but that didn't work. But what I found was that when I took something and made it into something else, it became powerful. This is called black egg, and this has to do really with what's happening, bad stuff, climate and animals and what's happening. And the duck underneath the figure was actually a duck that flew into a window, broke its neck, and then the dogs brought it into the backyard, so I had it to photograph. Nice present from them. And then, of course, the birds are made up of feathers and stuff of other birds. This is called Forest Father. I did a residency in Roanoke, Virginia, and it's very different than New Mexico. I mean, God, and here is very different than New Mexico. But there was just lots of, I went in the winter, and so there was a lot of, no leaves on the trees, a lot of kudzu, and they were tearing the forest apart. They were bulldozing in and putting in condominiums and shopping centers and stuff, and it was really upsetting to me because, again, I think this green growing stuff is so precious. And at the same time, I noticed there were all these places that sold concrete animals. So don't worry about the real ones because you can buy yourself a concrete owl or deer or whatever. So that's kind of what's happening here is this forest father's not happy about what's happening to his forest. This is Forest Mother. Same deal. She's just very upset about what's going on. That's kudzu in her where she's bending over, which is everybody. I think you all know it's this plant in the south that's sort of taking over. And then I just love the tree trunks because, again, we don't have big trees like that in New Mexico. So I was photographing these huge trees and then using the bark of the trees to form figures. This is called Hungry Cat. This is really about cats and how destructive they are. I think they're like, I don't know, the number one killer of birds or something. I mean, they're really powerful killers. And so this was the birds on top are actually dead birds that I photographed. And then, of course, the hungry cat is made up of all these different things. My husband had a grandfather. He was an alcoholic. He was a cowboy, a very, very tough guy. And this is really about him. It's called Old Cowboy. We have a lot of coyotes where I live, and I love them. But I'm also nervous about them because I have small dogs, and they, of course, love to eat cats and small dogs and things like that. So while I'm fascinated with them, I'm always a little bit worried when I see them that one's going to jump in our yard and gobble down our 14-pound little dog. But lots of coyotes. And this coyote, of course, is the painting, and then the body of the coyote is made up from a dead roadkill coyote. So that's how I get a lot of animal pictures, is from roadkill, dead animals. Not so much anymore. It's getting harder. Here's another coyote talking. This one is here in the hall. It's kind of fun to see it. The head of the coyote is a transfer, meaning I took the photograph and I put it over the paint so that what's behind comes through. So it kind of glows. So it has this really lovely glowing quality to it. So instead of gluing it down as a collage, I put it down and then in a way that allowed the back to come through the head. This is a self-portrait woman with her own coyote, kind of like a fever dream. And this would have been, the painted shapes would have been painting out them as negative shapes or allowing them to pop out and then figuring out how I wanted to turn those into figures. And those are my legs on both the figure and the coyote. This is a friend who had a photograph of a dead fox, which she gave to me. And then I did this beautiful ink wash, and this painting turned out. Fox with birds. My daughter had a great big mastiff that she found. It was right in 2008 when the crash happened. And I think whoever owned him, they just dumped him. They couldn't afford to feed him. So she had him for quite a while, maybe 10 years. And then she couldn't keep him. So we had him for the last couple of years of his life. And he just loved laying in our backyard and looking at the birds and, being a good big sun dog. And so this is called Guard Dog. And this is about Cash. Sometimes there's very little photographic information in the pieces. The only photos here are the eyes. This was a drawing I did of a friend's dog named DOG. And so I just love that that's the only photography in there is the eyes. I did a number of paintings where I would take the paint, put it down, and while it was wet, I would then take a brush with black paint and try and draw in a figure or draw something. And then if I didn't like it, I would wipe it out. So I had to work very quickly in order to be able to wipe out that figure. And it made me, you couldn't do anything complicated, it had to be fairly simple. And then I would come back in and put photographic information on top. So this is called Snake Handler. So the top snakes are real, and the bottom snake, of course, I made it up from other pieces of snakes. Same thing in this process is called David and Goliath. Poor Goliath is just getting hammered. Cowboy smoking. And what I love about this is that he's smoking, but he's also smoking. Because when I would wipe the paint, it sort of left this feeling of, he's going so fast that he's smoking. I've had, as I mentioned before, I've had this long, long history of horses. When I was 4 years old, I traded my bottle for a pair of cowboy boots. And ever since I've had this history with horses. And so friends' horses, my memories of horses, they keep coming up. And recently more so, there's been a change in me now where I've become more focused on horses and sort of how they exist as animals. But this was a friend's horse. It's called Old Horse. His body is made up of graffiti. And if you go into like a parking garage that's inside, there's just a lot of grease and tar and stuff that comes up. So it makes this beautiful pattern. Horse with colors. Again, this was a transfer so that by laying the clear, transparent horse down, then you get the colors coming behind it. And this is a horse that I photographed. He was in some kind of rodeo ground, and he was just in bad shape. He was skinny. The other horses were beating on him. And I always feel sort of sorry for him when I use him. This is the supplicant. This is another version of the one that I showed in the colores. But the body of the horse is made up from the palettes that you use when you mix paint. You get this wax paper. So when I teach, I would go around and take people's palettes when they were done with them and then use them as part of the painting. Anything goes when you collage, anything. They're my shoes, my dance goes. This is Awkward Rider. This is called Homage, and I did it right after the Las Vegas shootings. When the guy shot from the hotel and killed all the people. So it was sort of, I guess, that memory, that reaction. I did a couple of very big horse paintings, and what I did was I used something called paint peels, which are if you take acrylic paint and you lay it down on a slick surface like plastic, you let it dry and then you can peel it up and then put it back down and use it. They're really fun to work with because you're sort of making your image with paint, but it's paint that's already been formed. So horse resting. The photographic parts are the head, and then of course the legs and the tail are from something else, but everything else is the paint peels. Horse watching, same thing with the paint peels. And very minimal background painting. The paint peels are doing all the work. Oh, this one has just broke my heart. So I have a young friend, she's my daughter's age. They're now 35, and she had breast cancer. And it was just really scary. And she's okay. She just had a baby. Everything's good. But this is called blessing, and I did this, I think, to protect her. That was my way of helping her be safe, helping her be okay. This is another one of those kind of scary ones. It's called Dark Rider, and it had to do with a friend who dropped Dad. He was mowing his lawn. He had a heart attack, and so it was in reaction to that. And I did it. I have a blog, and I posted it on the blog. And his wife, who never would have looked at my blog normally, just happened to look at that blog, and it was about George and his heart attack. This is another spooky one. I was in Virginia doing this residency, and a friend of my daughter's just disappeared. He was in Maine going to school, and he went up early over Christmas break, and he disappeared. And no one knew what happened to him. He just disappeared. Good kid, not like drugs or something. And I was in Virginia at the same time, and I think I sort of felt like, well, if I am riding my bike and I get hit by a car, nobody's going to even know. I'm just going to be gone. So anyway, this is called A Boy with Angel, and it turned out that he had fallen into the river and frozen, and he came out in the spring when the thaw came. So to me, that angel was kind of, when I did it, I didn't know this is what happened, but when I saw the painting, I thought, oh, you did know. The angel is pulling him into the cold water, and her body is made up of oars. His body is made up of oars, and her body was made up of other stuff. But again, it's just sort of like I'm tuning into some wavelength that I have no idea where it's coming from, but it's always right. This is called Figure with Arms Raised, and this was a young woman who babysat for us. She was a neighbor, and Kirsten, and she would babysit the girls, and then she had bipolar disease, and I did this painting before she left home. Her stepfather was bad to her. She went off. Anyway, she ended up overdosing and dying, and I always felt like this painting was sort of prophetic. It sort of was talking about this bad thing that was going on inside her. Bear. So I go up to Colorado to teach a lot, and there are lots and lots of bears, and they're a big problem. They open up people's doors and windows and get into their refrigerators and sit and eat, the pizza and the cake and stuff. And so this is kind of my bear painting. Big Tears. I did this, I was working in Penland doing a workshop, and I was making it, and this man came by with his daughter, and he was chatting with me and friendly and stuff. And then he said, "What's it called?" And I said, "Big Tears." And he went, and he pulled his little girl away. It's like, really? Really, sir? Trying to keep troubles away. This is that whole 2008 bad time. The following ones are self-portraits, so I have all kinds of self-portraits. This is an earlier one with oil over the silver print, and it's called Swimmer. I love this one, Degenerate Holly. It's called Woman with Pearls. Again, I just love doing every now and then something that's almost not photographic at all. Woman with Small Dog Watching. This is an early one when I was just figuring out how to do this process of combining photos that were other things. Snake Neck. Another self-portrait. I sort of feel like sometimes you just can't express yourself. You just, or you express yourself too much, or, anyway, that Snake Neck. Woman with Braids. As I mentioned, I traded my bottle for my bottle for horse or cowboy boots. And so this is a picture when I was about that age. I was about 9. It's called Girl with Spotted Horse. This has to do with me and how unlimber I am. Woman tried to touch her toes. Woman at the beach. Haven't we all had that experience where you get too much sun? I think this was in the Colores one too. Beautiful woman. So it's my torso, and then that's asphalt and trees, and sort of making up this face that's nature. Snake truck, kind of that whole Joseph Campbell, on the Odyssey that we're all on. And I don't know if those hands are helping or hindering, if they're trying to pull me back, or if they really say, go on, go on. This one is fairly recent, powerful woman with 2 small dogs. Woman dreaming. It's sort of this feeling that you're kind of going through life and you're conscious, but you're not really. You don't really know what's going on because there's all this magic stuff that we're missing. At least I feel like that's what happens with me, is I just miss this incredible magic stuff because I'm worrying about, getting to school on time, or, some dumb thing that's keeping me from that absolutely great stuff. These are ones that I have a lot to do with washes, something which are kind of hard to control, but once you do, you get this beautiful surface. And I use something called joint compound or drywall mud, and I make a surface with that and then come back in and paint on top. And that's what this is over. It's my cousin, my husband. It's called Worker. He was is a physician for a long time, and then he retired and he started doing art. And so he's so much happier working with his hands and getting dirty and welding and not having to be in his head, but to actually be getting those gloves worn out. This is another one, Angry Man. This one was my COVID painting. So most people, I think, have a negative experience of COVID, and I just didn't. I'm an introvert, so it gave me a great excuse not to have to, go to parties or openings. I could just be in my studio. I was out in New Mexico. There was no problem about going out. You're just out in the open air. I started horseback riding. So this painting came about at that time. And I think part of that was this connection with nature. Because, during COVID, all these animals started to come out. That there were cars, the air wasn't being polluted. It just was sort of a magic time in a funny way. And it's called Coyote Mother. This is the same thing. This is another one sort of about nature and us having nature coming back to us because we're not just destroying it. So those were 2 of the paintings I did during COVID that I think were directly related to my deeper experience with nature and my less experience with people. Just kind of building it's another forest mother. These are my religious paintings. This is called Jesus Leaving, because why would he wanted to have stayed around? They were going to put him on the cross. And so he just gets in his truck and he takes off, throws his cross in the back and takes off. This is called A Religious Man. And the torso is based on an acupuncture diagram. And then the head is from a religious painting. I don't know if it's Jesus or not, but it had that nice Jesus-y feel to it. This is kind of another religious one in a way. In Colorado, I drive by this place when I'm going up to Colorado, and it's a shrine. And the shrine is that building. And it's got all this writing and all these prayers, and it's just really fascinating. And so these are sort of, again, these 2 figures that are in that other world that we don't see but still exists. And religion is kind of the bridge, not religion, but that certainly trying to get to that other side. So these are my most recent ones, and they're different. They're having to do with my connection with animals. And I'm finding that I want this experience, this connection I have with them, this looking in their eyes and seeing. And again, I want to be closer to them, but it's just hard. So I've been taking the photographs of the different animals and then combining them with different things. And this is called horse with spots, toy horse. Those wheels are from a barbed wire ball that we have barbed wire for fences. And someone was rolling up a fence and there were these huge barbed wire balls. I would have picked one up, but of course I couldn't. So I photographed them. Horse turning. So again, using the paper that I painted, I have the painting, which I just love these paintings. I almost didn't want to do anything on them. I thought they were so powerful. And but this is a painting with the washes that I put over with the horse head and the legs made from graffiti. Startled deer. So that's another animal that I try and photograph as much as I can. When I was very young, I had an experience where I can barely remember it, but a deer came in, we were camping, came into our camp, and I remember petting its stomach. And then it ran off and scared me, but it's this deep connection, some sort of deer thing. And this is called black mule. And this is a process I'll be teaching in the workshop where you can transfer a kind of mark you make onto your surface. So that I didn't actually draw onto the board, I draw onto a paper and then transfer it so you can get all kinds of great marks. And that's it. So, I would love your questions and ask anything, Yes.
Mine kind of comes in two parts. So part number one is when you are like walking around and just seeing things, do you look at something like the concrete and you're like, oh, that would be a great torso, and so then you're shooting. So that's part number one. And then part number two is, for myself, I've noticed that I have a really hard time cutting into photographs or like textured papers that I've made, and you do that. So I'm curious, like, do you just go for it? Or I've had to like turn mine upside down so I'm not looking to where I cut, because I don't know, it scares me or something. So if you could speak to that a little bit about how you actually pull shapes out.
So did everybody hear those questions? Do I need to repeat? So the first one is, I don't ever think, oh, I'm going to take this photograph and turn it into a knobby face. I just like it. And then I put it on my computer and I'll look through and say, oh, I really like that surface. And then I'll print it out. But I won't, generally, I never take a photograph with something in mind. That just doesn't work for me. And the other thing is I find that it's very powerful to cut into the photograph. It's like an act of sacrilege, it's like tearing a page out of a book. You're not supposed to do that. And the fact that they're digital, you can print more, you can do whatever you want. It's not the old silver prints where you had these prints that you'd spent forever trying to do. So I think that's it. You just have to think, yep, I'm just going to ruin this. Yeah. And then I think once your hands take over, that's the secret. Your hands know, they're so smart. And if you can let them cut what they need to cut and tear and do whatever, then you're on the way. So, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
I saw in the Dolores video, you had like a little folder of previously cut out collage pieces of like eyes or something. And I was curious how often you go out and photograph now versus using pieces you've really kept from previous artworks.
That's a great question. I don't photograph very much anymore. Like I forgot to bring my camera. I mean, I have my phone. But before I was always photographing. And part of it is I've seen it, I've photographed it, I have it. And I have stacks of photos. I have folders with eyes and noses and ears and horses, a big folder with horses and stuff. So in a way, it's kind of a problem, but in a way it's not, because I have so much stuff, And now as I'm heading into that last chapter of my life, I feel like, do I need more pictures of concrete? Yeah, maybe not, So I think it's that curiosity and having seen it, knowing it, and then I can just go in and start pulling stuff out because I have so much stuff. I mean, I probably have 200 eyes that I have little eyes and matching eyes and color. Anyway, so yeah, great question. So what else? Yeah.
You mentioned somewhere in there that you had a painting that you kind of liked it just as it was, didn't want to do anything to it. So this may be sort of a two-parter. Do you ever have those paintings where you just do not put anything on them? And likewise, do you ever have a photo where it's like, my work is done here? Like you just keep it.
Yeah, great question. So the first, these paintings with the horses and the deer and stuff on them, they were so beautiful. And I thought, God, you can't mess with them. They're just wonderful. But then I thought, So, I'm not known as an abstract painter. I have a friend who's an incredible abstract painter. And I thought, unless my paintings are going to be as good as Kevin's, come on, Holly, just let it go. And so they turned out well. I mean, I was really pleased that I went ahead. And then the second question was,
Do you ever have photographs that you just look at and feel like this is a finished piece of work?
Yeah. Because in my secret fantasy, I want people to say, she's such a great photographer. Why did she have to paint over it or cut? But that doesn't happen. So and the thing is, you always have it. It's not like the old days where you had the photograph and that was your only print. Now you have, however many prints. And then what do you do with them? That's the other thing. Do you have them and you go through them? I mean, I have so many photographs so I think I love some of my photographs. And again, I have that secret desire that the world is going to say, oh, God, she is a really great photographer. But, this has not happened. So
Maybe a show I'd like to see.
Yeah. And I keep hoping someone will propose that. But yeah. Yeah. And there are some really wonderful ones. I did it was a proposal for a show. It didn't go, but it was pictures of my older daughter from babyhood up until she was about 16. And they were really great photos, from over the years. And so they didn't get accepted into this book, but they're now on the screensaver on the computer. And so that's really fun to see her. It's a baby waving her arms, and it's an arrogant teenager glaring at, So anyway, but yeah. So what other questions? Guys are getting good questions. Come on, let's really work it here. Yeah.
I have a second one. You said that you go into Photoshop maybe or something in a computer with digital photos, figure out what you like and then print it out. Do you print everything the same size or is there a different scale to what you print out?
Completely different scale. Like sometimes I will just need one little head. Sometimes I want to use a big body of a horse. I have a big printer. I have an HP 800 or whatever. So I can do up to 1620 or whatever. And but I usually do just the regular old 8.5 by 11. But the printer's a big part of my life, and it's always breaking down and awful. But anyway, yeah.
I was curious about the animated version that was made at the end of the interview there. Is that something you did in the studio while you were assembling that piece, or is that something that they did after the fact?
I did it as my video. I mean, I did it. I took pieces and did the photos of them and then put them together. So it's my adventure into being a videographer. So anyway, what else? Yeah.
What kind of paper do you print on typically?
I have all kinds of different papers, but basically, the only ones that aren't good are the really heavy, thick papers because they don't glue very well. But even the copy paper, the stuff you'd use in your printer. But the thing that's tricky with the printers is longevity, and if they get wet, you don't want the ink to come up. So the inkjet printer ink, it's all just sort of complicated and gnarly. And in the workshop, I'll have to confuse my students with what's a laser print, what's an inkjet print. But we'll just use regular old normal paper. Nothing special, no Moab or whatever. So anyway, anybody else? Yeah.
Each of your works is an original. Do you do posters or prints that you also sell?
The one thing that I do is I make art in the computer. It lives in the computer, and I'll do editions of those. And then they're just limited editions, but they only live in the computer because I've made them with Photoshop and bringing in images and stuff.
And I think I don't want more of anything. I'm, at this point in my life, I want to get rid of stuff. I don't want to do more additions or anything like that. And these computer prints are kind of nice because they don't cost very much and they're sort of easy to do. And so if I donate a piece for an auction or something, a lot of times I'll donate those. And you can do different sizes. You can do whatever you tell the computer to print out. So that would be my attempt at being popular, I guess. So
the pieces that are photo and paint, whatever, are
one of a kind. And I've done where I try to duplicate them, and like you can print on the back of acetate, and they're real flashy looking, but nobody ever seemed very interested in those. So I never got enough encouragement to can you send them out and have them printed, and they print on the back. They're kind of, you can take your family and put them on the back, and they have this shiny surface. But again, just kind of never went anywhere. So what else? You guys are probably getting ready to go have dinner. So yeah.
I got another question. What kind of, how would you describe your working technique? Like, do you have a certain time of the day you go in and work, or is it just like all of a sudden you drop the dishes and I gotta go?
No. First of all, I procrastinate as much as I can. And I try and work in the afternoons because I'm not very good in the mornings. So I work in the afternoons. I try and start by 2, but sometimes that'll be 4 because I procrastinated so much. And then whenever I start, I'm just, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. It's terrible. And then I'll finally start doing stuff, and then it'll take over. But each time, it's like I have to jump through these hoops of discouragement and feeling like, I don't know why this is accidents. I don't know how these happen. So, but yeah, there's the picture of the artist bouncing into her studio. And I'm much better than I used to be. When I was younger, I would be really depressed and discouraged. And then this thing would take over and I'd be okay, I think that's a lot why I kept working so much, because it helped my sanity. So anyway. But a lot with my students too, is I feel like they think they should be having fun. They think they should be enjoying what they do, and I just beat that right out of them. No, this is hard work, and you're going to suffer and struggle, and that's how you know you're on the right track. So if you're having fun, then we got to stop that right there. So, yeah.
I like how you call yourself a storyteller. Do you think of each piece as a story, or do you think you're building like a series that builds up to a story?
No, what it is I finish it, and then I say, oh, that's what it's about. Or at some point, as I'm making a painting, it becomes clear to me that that's what the story was. But I don't start with the story in mind, or it reveals itself. Sometimes at the end, sometimes in the middle-ish. But it can't be anything there when I start it. It just doesn't work. So anyway, any other questions?
One more quick one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to say that somebody else wanted. Okay, so I'm teaching 4 and 5-year-olds in this building, and we have been making collages after your work. So we've been sitting in the hall and looking at them. And I told them that you were in Kalamazoo, and they are quite excited. And so tomorrow I'll come, and could you maybe give me words of advice that I can say I'm sharing from the artist to my group of wee little art makers?
Well, the thing is, those wee little art makers are pure artists.
Well,
that's
true.
That's the thing. We all want to get to the point that they're at, So I think it's just, they get to have fun. They get to enjoy them. They don't have to suffer like we do. Yeah, no, don't. Holly said I had to hit you. No, kids are there. They're the real deal, And so just allow, I think the thing is, in my workshops, a lot of times I get people who, when they were, 5, 6, 7, 8, some damn teacher told them they couldn't draw a tree or they couldn't, and they never went back to art. So whatever you do, don't ever discourage that, because generally they know more than you do anyway, so that would just allow that wonderful voice to come through, and don't discourage them. But yeah, they're just fantastic. 9-year-olds, they're the best, I think, in terms of being artists that are not polluted yet by. So anyway, yeah, you're welcome. So yeah.
So
some things that people don't consider. Being as prolific as your career has been, the issue of storage.
Oh, Tom, I don't want to talk about it.
And I know you're trying to find homes for a lot of paintings. I'm just wondering how that's going.
It's good and bad. I mean, it's like I was telling Mary, it's like I have this Labrador Retriever. She keeps having these litters of beautiful puppies, and I have to find good homes for them, you know. And it's interesting too, because even though I'm donating work to places, a lot of places don't particularly want more work, you know, just because you're an artist and you have a certain reputation. So like Bridges, I tried to get them to take work, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. But other places, I'll like here. I mean, this is so wonderful. It's up, it's enjoyed, it's loved, it's in a great collection. These are puppies going to good homes, you know. So, but it's a terrible problem. I lay awake at night and worry about it and fret and think my poor daughters are going to have to deal with this stuff, you know. Do you have a similar problem?
I have photographs that are smaller. So.
Oh, that makes it easier, yeah. So everybody, Tom was my teaching assistant when I first taught at Penland. And he was this very young, sweet, kind of naive guy, and now he's not. He's a grown-up adult. And he's political. So it's really fun to see him. So I think I should dismiss you guys because I know you need to go to dinner. So thank you so much. It's really been fun.